Right. So today's topic is post-traumatic growth. But what's the short form of that? PTSD, post-traumatic stress. PTG?
Yeah, PTG, why not?
PTG. So when we say that, like let's understand that, Teresa, post-traumatic growth. Very interesting term, isn't it? Uh,
Yeah.
um, because the world is, uh, you know, it's a very familiar word. PTSD is very familiar. For those of you who don't understand PTSD, it's just that when, let's say, the favorite word, trauma, something, an experience, a very difficult experience causing stress, a residue of that experience continuing. Um,
Hmm.
uh, it can be anything. So that's what it's called as a trauma reaction. But this is the opposite of it. This is the opposite. Like an adversity, a trial, something which doesn't seem like a blessing, a situation, which turns out to be an awakening.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that even possible? Let's talk about us, shall we, Tracy?
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you say awakening, I could definitely relate to that. And in fact, I termed my awakening to the traumatic experience that I had and the growth that came after. I termed that the impetus to my rebirth because it really felt like not just awakening, but being reborn, like like nobody remembers their birth experience, but of course it's going to be a very traumatic and painful, experience, just, even physically. And it really felt like that for me. The amount of pain and discomfort and just agony of going through a really painful, high conflict divorce when I never thought that I would be in that situation. It just didn't ever cross my mind. I just assumed that that would never happen for me because growing up my whole life, and I didn't realize it at the time, but all of my relationships were based on a level of codependency, which means that I was always relying on someone else to make me feel whole, to make me feel seen, heard, and understood. And, when they were good with me or they were, showing up well with me, then I was okay. But when they were not, or they were upset with me, or they were, didn't want to associate with me, or didn't want to maintain a relationship with me, it was really devastating for me and, painful. And that's what that was like when my marriage broke down and I was going through this divorce. There was a lot of pain, you could imagine rejection, abandonment, fears of the unknown, all that coming at once. And in my tendencies, I always look to someone else to help me. And as I mentioned before, that all the doors were shut. There was nobody to help me. Nobody could help me in terms of what I needed and what I was seeking, that safety, that security, that comfort, that peace, that knowing that everything's going to be okay. I couldn't find it anywhere. And so, it really drove me to, like I said, to look upward. And that really, that really pointed me in the direction of seeking out the source.
Mm.
And so that was my journey of how, that was my impetus, that experience, that traumatic experience of, the relationship breaking down and going into divorce. And then, with kids and everything, it just was really messy. But that traumatic experience was, and by the way, it opened, like it showed me that it wasn't just, that was the impetus actually that led me to a lot of other things that were underneath that experience. But returning back to the source, relying on the source and learning what that look like. What does that mean? Well, what is it to rely on the source? How do I know that I am? And that direction actually helped me to grow, to understand who I am, to really to blossom, to have that level of confidence that I have today because I know who I am and because I'm relying on the source. And, it gave me courage that I never had before, courage to do new things, scary things, that I never did before because I was always relying on someone else to help me with those type of things, getting out of my comfort zone, speaking up, using my voice, which terrified me before. So it produced a lot of internal growth, which
Mm.
did manifest externally in terms of my relationships, in terms of my choices for my profession, my career, and just how I showed up in the world. So I would definitely say that's how, for me, I could see that, my greatest test was my greatest blessing.
I love that. My greatest test was my greatest blessing. And that needs to be understood, isn't it, Teresa? That
Mm,
is something which I don't think most people understand. I didn't. That's something which, because there's a lot of misunderstanding of what trauma means.
mm,
Let me say it differently, what a traumatic experience means.
yeah.
Because trauma, if you just define this a bit, it's not about what's happening on the outside, it's about what's happening on the inside. Isn't it? Okay?
Hmm.
Is a difficult experience. A trauma is nothing but a difficult experience for an individual. It has nothing to do with the experience, because an experience can be difficult for someone, it may not be difficult for someone. So there is no logic to this. Okay.
Right. It's
And
not about, like you said, what happened.
it is
It's
not.
about how you experienced the event.
Yes. And again, and how I experience in that moment is again is the interesting part where it seems traumatic because I have something to see there. Like it is not happening in my consciousness. There is, I don't have enough understanding there. Okay. That's why it becomes a difficult experience. And more often it happens at a time when we lack understanding. So most of our trauma happens in our early years of life. So when we understand this, trauma is not about what's happening on the outside, it's happening on the inside. It doesn't mean anything really. It doesn't define you. Okay. It
Mm,
doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean we'll have to run away for life. It doesn't mean we're imprisoned for life. Okay. It doesn't mean that I carry a label that around not talking about it, running away from that experience for life. No, none of that. What we are saying, the divine design, there is a reason that happened, period.
yes.
I think
Yes.
that's a good place just to pause and say, we don't understand why that happened. There is no blame.
Mm,
There's no blame on self first. And I should have known better. No, of course we didn't know better than that.
no.
Okay,
Yeah.
hence that happens. Two, there's no blame on anyone, not even God,
Yeah.
not even God. It's
Yeah.
not like you were supposed to suffer. No, no, it happened for a very good reason. Just that in that moment, it doesn't seem like that. It's like a
Right.
love letter in disguise. Okay? It's like a gift in disguise,
Mm,
which, if we understand, like Rumi says, the cure for pain is in the pain. Okay? Light
yeah.
enters to darkness. And that's exactly what we're talking about. And I've had my experience too as a child, very briefly. 5-year-old, maybe, on a stage, addressing maybe hundreds of people for the first time ever in my life. Um, Fancy this competition. I was supposed to say one line. Guess what happens to the kid? Walks up to the dressed up really well, okay, like decked up, okay. Um, Goes up to the stage, pitch dark, but can see people, lots of people, lots and lots of people. Freezes. The kid freezes, okay, and has no words. Everybody looking, no words. Okay? Few moments of such agony that can something happen that I just disappear. So painful, so drowning in shame. Like as if like, what a creature am I that I don't want to stand here in front of people. It was so agonizing.
Mm.
And the worst part, I couldn't talk about it to anyone. There was no adult who can help me understand what was going on. I just froze. But what was the meaning attached? I thought, that's it. And I didn't even
I'm
know.
sorry, what did you say?
I am not good enough.
Mm.
I lack something. Everybody is better than me. Okay? Just that I didn't understand that. That was the meaning attached. The rest of my life, I drowned in shame. Didn't want to be on the stage for a very long time. Ran away from things. Didn't have friends. Struggled big part of my life. Even while growing up, always conscious, super conscious. Okay? Because there was this meaning underneath, which was, I'm not good enough. And I believed that. I didn't even realize it was just a thought, which I
Mm.
believed to be my truth. Okay? So now this is the is the experience till the awakening. So this became my greatest awakening. So 20 years of searching to solve this puzzle through different modalities, tools and techniques, different teachers, coaches, mentors. That didn't go. That just didn't go. So I thought, okay, yeah, sure. Like I need to help more people, and maybe, okay? Till I realized I there was nothing wrong with me.
Mm.
That
What a
was just a
realization,
thought.
huh?
Yeah, really. It felt my purpose of life ended there. The search ended. Like really, my life pursuit ended. I didn't know what to do because that was my project for life, to fix myself and the world.
Mm. Mhm.
I was believing that there's hole in me, there's a hole in the world. And when I realized, no, there's nothing wrong with me.
Mm.
That's not true, that there's something wrong with me. That ended everything. That was an awakening that happened when I connected with the source. And this is not something which we can explain. What does that even mean, connecting with the source? Can't explain.
Yeah.
Can't explain. It is just that when we are born, we are connected. It's like connected to the mains. Okay? And we lose that in some experience of life. We don't know why. It just happens. Most of us have had our own experiences of life, which has been difficult. It disconnects with our own self, our true self. It disconnects with the source of life, source of everything. So post-traumatic growth is like realizing it's not about fixing the life. It's not about chase. It's about coming back to ourselves, coming back to the
Mm.
source. It
Mhm.
doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. It is not just about, okay, now I can feel better. No, no. That is what we offer to the world. That learning. Because now I understand, Sarasa, what shame feels like. To live with shame, to drown in guilt, to live with panic all the time, extreme fear, drenched in sweat type of fear, all the time, most of the time. Okay? I understand that. Okay? That's my gift. That's my training to help others. Now, did I know that then? Of course not. Of course not.
No,
Okay?
no.
This is why This is why we say there are different awakenings for people, how that it's a blessing in disguise. Okay?
Mm.
How that experience can become an awakening and a blessing for the world around us. That's what we are talking about.
Yeah. Like you said, it's like your true purpose revealing itself.
That is right. Yes, our individual purpose comes from our
Mm,
deepest traumatic experiences. Okay.
mhm.
Hence, hence, till we are ready, of course, till we are ready. Okay. And that's is the divine design. That's the kindness of the divine design. So post-traumatic growth is for people who understand there's a reason behind that difficult experience. There is no need to run.
Mm.
It can be understood. The struggle can be understood. And as a result, we become the means of help to ourselves. Like you said, doors were closed outside. But what happened? You opened up to yourself because you connected with the source, isn't it, Teresa?
Exactly, exactly. Which I didn't even knew like existed that was a avenue
Yeah,
or a route. I
yeah.
was always seeking outward, never
Same here.
inward. Yeah.
Same here. Yes, that's what we do. We are chasing for help, for support, whatever. That chase ends.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is that that's what it took in order
Yes,
for me to be able to see myself,
yes.
know myself through the source. And of course, the source knows that because God is the one who created us, right? So he knows best what he created and at what point I was ready to go through that challenge and what it took for me to really come back home to knowing myself through my connection with the source. So it's yeah, like every pain or agony, it's like a preparation. We don't understand that. Like you said, it's a misunderstanding. We don't understand it at the moment, at the time. But through knowing this, we can see beyond the pain that we're in right now.
Yeah. So our deepest blessing comes through our deepest fear and pain, not just for
Mm,
us, to the world, which is what is something to be understood. We understand. We want to help people understand. That's something to ponder about. Um,
yeah.
not to be not the band-aid. We don't need a band-aid. We need an understanding. Yeah, beautiful. So I think that's a beautiful place to pause this episode. What do you say, Stress? Is there anything
Yeah,
that you want to add?
definitely. I agree.